Achim Yekarim, I wanted to make this Daily Chidush. Bezat Hashem, we'll try to do a few of them today and also tomorrow to talk about the halachot of Pesach and also the month of Nisan. As we saw, anyone that saw the Hebrew shiur by Rabbi Ephraim Kachlon and I didn't have any, just had the background of the books, but talked about the halachot of Pesach. And now, pretty much in so many words, going to translate it into English. So first off, we need to know that the month of Nisan is a month full of miracles, hence the name Nisan. Nisan comes from the word Nes, so many miracles happened during the month of Nisan. This is one of the reasons why throughout the entire month of Nisan, the Sephardics do not say Tachnun, the Vidui, the part where we tell Hashem during our daily prayer in Shachrit and Mincha that we've sinned, all these different types of sins. We do not say it during this entire month. The second thing we do during the month of Nisan is the Birkat HaIlanot. And by the way, in regards to Ashkenazis do not do from what I know, do not do the Tachnun in general during the same times as the Sephardics. So the second thing is in regards to Birkat HaIlanot. Birkat HaIlanot is a praise to Hashem because this is the season of when new fruits grow. So one must go in front of a fruit tree of some type that right before the fruits start growing, really literally right in the beginning, which is around this time of the year, and make a special blessing, the Birkat HaIlanot, the blessing of the Ilanot, praising Hashem for creating a perfect world and a place for us to enjoy every one of His creations. The next thing is in regards to the whole issue of chametz. Thursday night this year is when we are all supposed to, when nightfall happens, when there's 3 stars in the sky, or in pretty much most areas in the world there's some type of a specific time, but usually it's based on when the stars are expected. We are supposed to check for chametz. Now, the first and most important thing that one needs to check for, as we mentioned a couple of days ago in the Chidush, is the chametz inside him. The chametz that's inside you. And I'm not referring to food, I'm referring to the bad midot that each one of us needs to work on, whether it be anger or stinginess or any other bad character trait that obviously is not the midah, it's not the character trait of Hashem. We're here to emulate Hashem and act the same way He acts, act the same way that we want Him to act towards us. So if one is cheap, then Hashem could be cheap to them. If one is brutal and never has any mercy on anyone, then unfortunately he's bringing that midat adin on himself. If one is angry, again, all of these things that one is, the way he acts, he's in essence going to bring those things to himself. So the first chametz we need to work on is the one in ourselves. The one that, we are need to work on throughout the entire year, and Pesach is a perfect opportunity to start working on them and start doing TESHUVA. Obviously working on midot is not an overnight process. The Rabbi Israel from Salant, who started the Musar movement, said that to work on one midah, one character trait, is hard work every single day for 6 years and is more difficult than completing the entire Shas. So obviously it is not an overnight process, but better now than never, better start now than just ignore it and saying it's too hard for us to change ourselves, because one who does not change his midot is not fulfilling his purpose in the world. So working on this chametz, the night of the physical chametz that we have here, the night of Thursday night, is when we are going to have to make sure that all of the chametz in the house or any place we're going to spend any time in throughout the holiday has to have no chametz whatsoever. Anyone that's traveling, and is in a hotel room has to check the hotel room. Anyone that's at home or at someone else's house has to check and make sure that there's no chametz. It's a minhag or a custom to put 10 different pieces of chametz in different places. One person has to hide them, usually the wife, and the the husband looks for them with the candle, or if a candle is is too dangerous, in some places where it's too small, or it's just not, it's chas v'shalom flammable, then you can use, according to Rav Ovadia, you can use a flashlight. Ideally, it's a candle, but again, make sure that you're very careful. Look for chametz, and if the wife would hide 10 pieces of chametz, you put them usually in Ziploc bags or some type of bag, so obviously they don't spread everywhere. And you find them. Once you find these chametz, then it shows that you've made a good bdika, a good check. Also, 30 minutes before the chametz is no longer, checking the chametz. You're not allowed to eat a big meal. So before you're checking the chametz, 30 minutes beforehand, you have to not eat any big meals, and or start any melacha, any work. Why? Because these things usually cause a person to forget of things that he needs to do, and you end up chas v'shalom delaying or postponing it to a later time, which even if you forgot or it just didn't happen to do it right at the time where there's 3 stars in the sky, you're still obligated to do it. But ideally, it's good to do it right at the time where we're supposed to do it, and not at 3 o'clock in the morning or some later time. So make sure that you're checking for the chametz very good. This is also a very good thing to bring your kids to join you and show them the importance of finding chametz and making sure that we remove it from ourselves for this holiday. As we all know, in the Torah, it specifically says that one who violates the Pesach holiday is karet. It's the worst possible punishment in the Torah. It's in the same level of violating Shabbat. And we've talked many times about how significant violating Shabbat is. Cuts you off from the nation of Israel, cuts you off from the nation of the Jewish people. So obviously, this is something we all need to understand, that the chametz is not just a small, no big deal thing. It is a very, very big deal. Now, any chametz that you still have left, you either have to sell it or burn it. And this is one of the main things you need to do. And also during the time that you burn the chametz, you also do a blessing that any chametz that you know of or you don't know of is considered null and void. It's considered like ashes or dust. So this is something, again, very, very important to do. Even if you're traveling, you're still obligated to sell your chametz back home. So make sure you meet with a rabbi that will show you, exactly what to say and what to do in order to sell your chametz an appropriate way. Don't just say it in your mind thinking that it's okay, because again, this is too big of a mitzvah, too big of an obligation for us to mess around with and just have shortcuts. So again, Pesach is a biblical obligation. It's from the Torah. It's not some holiday that a few people created because they were bored with their life. This is specifically a time that we are celebrating the Exodus, the Yetziat Mitzrayim. Aside from that, in regards to the holiday, we have to also make sure that during this time, right now as we speak, one of the major halachot of the month of Nisan and of Pesach is to learn the halachot and the story of Pesach. So this is a time where every one of us needs to spend a little bit of time either watching shiurim or learning from books about the story of the Exodus. And I don't mean just the basic story that they had a movie about 40 years ago. I mean the midrashim, to make it interesting for the family to enjoy the story of Pesach. And whether the blood, you could say it in 2 versions. The blood plague that Hashem brought on the Egyptians, you could say it in 2 versions. One very boring version, which is the water turned into blood. Or the second version is the water turned into blood, but not just the water turned into blood, but anything and everything that ever had any water in it, including an orange, obviously has water in it. A tree, obviously has water in it. Any type of fruit. The walls. When you put walls together, you have to use some water, especially when in those times, cement and so on. Anything and everything that had water in it turned into blood, meaning that the walls were bleeding, the fruits were bleeding, everything was bleeding. Why? Because Hashem wanted to show Am Yisrael and the Egyptians, that he has complete control of the entire world, and he's doing this all for the Jews, because the Jews only had water. The Egyptians only had blood. So there's many, many other details about it. This is also one of the ways that Hashem fulfilled his promise to Avraham Avinu, where he said that your people, your descendants, are going to leave slavery with a lot of wealth. A lot of wealth. So how do they leave with a lot of wealth? There's three different ways that they got wealthy. One of them is through this plague of blood, because the Egyptians obviously needed to drink. They can't drink blood. They can't survive on blood. So what would they do? They'd have to buy the water from the Jews. Because if they tried stealing it from the Jews or taking it forcefully from the Jews, it would stay blood. Even if it was a cup of water in the hand of a Jew 1 second and the Egyptian just put a straw and started drinking it, it would instantly turn into blood. Unless he paid for it. So this is literally miracles on the spot. And this is one of the ways that the Jewish people got very, very wealthy and turned from slaves to, a dominant world power. So again, when Hashem wants to bring us salvation, he brings it instantly. So you can make the story very interesting, tell people how Hashem is extraordinary and amazing and beyond everything and anything back then, today, and in the future. Or you could just say, oh yeah, the water turned into blood, just like it says in the Agadah, and move on to the next plague. So again, obligation is to learn these stories, learn these details, watch the shiurim we made on the relevant parashot, which is in the beginning of the book of Exodus. We have several shiurim. Baruch Hashem, we tried very hard to include a lot of midrashim, a lot of stories behind the story of what happened in Egypt exactly, so you can use all of this for your time during the Seder, because the biggest obligation during the Seder, believe it or not, is not eating. The biggest obligation is to tell the story of the Exodus, to tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. So we all need to spend some time today, tomorrow, and prepare ourselves for the for the Seder. Other than that, as far as the chametz, again, make sure that you brush your teeth very, very carefully before the holiday begins, to make sure that there's no chametz inside your teeth, because unlike the rest of the year, Pesach does not have a cancelable amount, meaning that usually when you have something kosher, let's say a kosher dish, but there's a drop of non-kosher something drops into it. If that drop is 1 part out of 60 or less, then the dish is considered kosher still. But in Pesach, if there's one tiny little drop of non-kosher, a piece of bread or anything that's not kosher for Passover, that goes into a dish that's the size of Jerusalem, the entire dish is void and not kosher for Pesach. There's no bitul in Pesach. It's a very, very, very important halacha in regards to Pesach, that there's no bitul. There's no 1 out of 60 in Pesach. What else? We had as far as the chametz, again, make sure that every product that you buy has an obvious stamp, not just a sticker, but an obvious stamp from a respectable rabbinical authority of kosher, that it is kosher for Passover. Do not assume anything is kosher for Passover, including salt, including sugar, even though it's not logical for us to think, why would salt be not kosher for Passover, or sugar? In today's manufacturing world, many of these places that manufacture in large quantities have, different types of products. It's not just salt, it's not just sugar, it's not just different things. They also put wheat and other things in the same fields, in the same companies, and sometimes you'll have a grain of non-kosher for Passover, in a huge canister of kosher Passover, and completely ruining it. So you have to make sure that everything is a kosher for Passover from a respectable place. And as far as the kosher part of it, just to give you guys an understanding of this world that we live in, just a couple of years ago, the Rabbi Ephraim walks into a store and he sees an Arab worker putting kosher for Passover stickers on beer. which can never be kosher for Passover. So just to give you an understanding is that these people that have no yirat shamayim, have no fear of Hashem, have no clue either, so they just take advantage of naive people that do not spend any time learning about kosher for Passover, or what's kosher, what's not kosher. People go to a store, they see a sticker saying kosher for Passover, they say, oh great, okay, so I'll drink beer on Passover. There's no such thing. So there's certain products that can never be kosher, and there's certain products that can be, but you have to make sure that the stamp is part of the packaging. It's not just some sticker that somebody could have put. Also, in regards to kitniyot are allowed to Sephardics, but the Ashkenazi minhag, already that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, is not to eat kitniyot, which is things like rice. So if you are Ashkenazi, unless you have authority from a major Rav that you've pretty much in essence changed everything to Sephardic, you are not allowed to have kitniyot. So in essence, unless you've become Sephardic all year round, which is allowed, you are not allowed to have kitniyot, even if you like them, even if you don't want to keep this minhag. There's no such thing. We are obligated to not only keep the halachot of the Torah, but also the halachot and the minhagim of our forefathers. The forefathers of the Ashkenazis did not eat kitniyot out of concern that in those days the same sacks that were used for rice were also used for wheat. So since you're not allowed to have wheat, they said, listen, we don't know if 1 grain of wheat can go into the rice, might as well, we're not allowed to eat rice either. So again, even though today that issue is not the same, the bottom line is that the minhag is already exists. We're not allowed to cancel minhagim, and therefore, if you're Ashkenazi, you're not allowed to have it. And also certain parts of the Sephardics, like for example Moroccans, also do not eat kitniyot. So this is again another thing that we need to know. Make sure that any products that you buy, whether it's peanuts, candy, or anything else, is only from closed. It's closed and sealed. It's not a good idea to buy it from these places that have open sacks of food, because sometimes it's easy for a drop of chametz to go in there, and which ruins the whole thing, which you would never be able to see with the naked eye. That's another thing. Medicine is, if it has no taste, does not need to be kosher for Passover, but if it does have a taste, if it has any taste whatsoever, like a sugary taste or anything like that, then it must be kosher for Passover, even though it's medicine. So that's another thing. The last thing, but not least in regards to this, is the Moroccans were so scared of violating Passover, because they truly knew, in the old age, they knew exactly what it meant. Unlike, unfortunately, some people today and some of us today, that they literally would not even host any guests on Passover. They wouldn't go anywhere themselves. Everybody was just focusing on the holiday, making sure that they celebrate the holiday perfectly. And this is the reason behind, or at least one of the reasons behind, the celebration that the Moroccans have, which is called the Mimuna. Mimuna was started to show everybody, listen, we weren't together for this holiday, but to make sure everybody knows it's not because of something personal. Obviously, we want to have a celebration where everyone's invited, every family, friends, everyone's invited to have the celebration. So this, again, gives us an idea that unity is extremely important during the time of Passover, but kosher is just as important, if not more important, than anything else throughout the entire year. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll come up with some more things to give you later today, and if you have any specific questions, please feel free to ask. May Hashem continue to bless you, and Be'ezrat Hashem, this will help us get closer and closer to Hashem.